Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. So in this video, I want to share a little bit of my experience when it comes to understanding markets and the economy and what this recession may mean for us as Turo hosts. Studying markets, looking at the economy has always been one of my obsessions for some weird reason. It's something that I read about on a daily basis. I should have probably gone to school for that, but I didn't. I went to school for business. Going to school for economics or finance probably would have been a little bit more useful, but nonetheless, here we are. We can always self-learn and get better. But since recessionary times are looming, around us, I think it's very important to take a proactive approach so that you don't end up into a situation where choices and decisions are being made for you and then you're just sort of being reactive, right? So right now, I really think that the everyday person, the consumer, doesn't fully realize what is happening in terms of our economic conditions. Things have definitely shifted. If you're invested in any of the markets at all, whether it's stocks or bonds or crypto, whatever it might be, if you have retirement accounts like 401ks, IRAs, Roth IRAs, any of the above, then you've seen that they have taken a major downturn, right? And that is because of just things kind of shifting and changing. And obviously, if we get a little deeper into it, there's corrections for obvious reasons because during the pandemic, there was all this money that was printed, which has now caused inflation. There's just a greater money supply in the market, etc., etc. It makes the value of the dollar go down. And maybe that is an entirely separate video. But I think that there are very valuable lessons that we can sort of implement as Turo host and then think about, the next, potentially 12 to 18 months of this recession. Nobody ever really knows how long a recession is, but this is just what some of the experts think that it might be based on history and based on what has gone on. So for me personally, people think it's so weird when I say this, but I love recessions because I think it's such a good time that in a way, it forces you to really think about how do you create value in the goods and services that you output into the market, right? And that's like literally the definition of an economy is the output of goods and services. And so when you're in recessionary times, it all comes down really to value. It's those who can truly offer real value are the ones who stay alive and who are able to stay alive long enough to outlast a recession and then hopefully thrive when things pick back up. And I love times like this because even for me, who as someone like me has been doing Turo now for 7 years, the other day in a private community, powerhost.club community, as you guys know, we did an entire lesson on, for example, sales copywriting. How can you improve your listing descriptions so that when somebody reads through them, it's not just a list of warnings like, hey, don't smoke in my car, don't have pets in my car, or it's not just a list of features. Oh, this car has, this type of stereo system and it does this many miles per hour or whatever it might be, which is what most listings are. So we did a little lesson on how to improve your listings, how to add more value by writing really great sales copy so that when somebody reads your description, they are being sold with every sentence, and then there is a call to action for them to book your listing. And even when I went through my own listing descriptions, I was like, wow, they could really use a lot of work. So I found a really great framework for sales copywriting, and then we implemented that into our listing. So the moral of that story is that there is always value that can be added into anything that you're doing. And when times are tough and demand is low, you really want to make sure that you're adding the most value and standing out from the crowd. So I'm going to go over a couple of lessons that you as a Turo host or a potential Turo host can implement with your business. But let's just talk about the economy really quick and just get a little bit of an understanding. Now, I listened to this really great podcast the other day, and they were talking about, the recession and just kind of putting it into perspective. And you would really have to be somewhere between the age of 36 to maybe 45 right now to have had really experienced the effects of the great financial crisis of 2008, 2009, roughly, right? Which means, at best, if you're 36 now, you were, what is that, maybe 22 at that time. And that means you would have had to have been running a company and really had something that was working in the markets in order to feel the effects of the recession. Now, I know personally, I wasn't old enough to experience it. I was still in school, so I never really got to feel that. But learning from some of my mentors, I've learned a lot in these last couple of months about what that was like and how to really buckle down and make sure that you are ready for recessions and that you're equipped enough to get through them. And then when you come out on the other end, that you thrive. And so to me, that's really exciting because it opens up opportunities, right? If you are sort of proactive and you have a very strong work ethic and you can understand building value into any goods or services that you output, then I think it makes a very strong case for succeeding, not only during recessionary times, but thriving when, the markets change and everything's on the up and up. So with that said, if you're not in that age range, no worries, neither am I. So I don't know what the great financial crisis felt like. I was too young for that, but, I'm excited that at my age, I get to experience a recession and I get to do it at a time where I still have the freedom to create things and try things, and it's okay to fail, but I get to learn through it. And I think that that is the case for so many of you out there. Now, when it comes to Turo, I think that we are going to see a huge influx of people coming onto the platform, right? And it's not necessarily because people are losing their jobs. I mean, yes, there's definitely an uptick in layoffs, but just because cost of living has gone up, cost of goods and services have gone up, and because of inflation, people need additional income to offset these expenses that have now increased. So what better way, especially for people who are still working from home, which is still a vast majority of people, to list their cars on Turo and earn that extra money, which I think is fantastic, right? Platforms like Turo and Uber are so great during these times because it gives you that additional way of earning. And if you want to learn more about how to list your car on Turo, how to get started with a business like this, definitely check out my course at powerhost.club. However, for those of us that are on the market, we know that with an increase in supply of host, which means an increase in the amount of cars that are on the platform, it makes it that much more competitive, right? But lucky for us, we have the advantage of already being on the platform, understanding the platform, and knowing what renters want. So here are some ways that you can build value. When it comes to that rental experience with a Turo renter, you want to always remember that you're in the business of providing an experience. So you can do very, very fundamental things, right? So let's break it down, first starting off with your listing. And by the way, if you're liking this video so far, make sure you hit that like button. I would so appreciate your guys' support. So with your listing, obviously, make sure you have fantastic photos, right? Because that is the very first point of sale. It's the very first thing that somebody sees that makes them want to click on your listing and learn more. So have great pictures. Then obviously have competitive price points. So that is relative to the market. You don't want to price yourself out of the market so that people are just like, oh, this is just way too expensive. I can't rent this. And then have a great description that is really using some good hook lines, some great descriptions, and helping people visualize what their experience might be like should they rent from you. And then a very good call to action to get them to complete that booking. The last thing you want someone to do is to click into your listing because you had great photos and then not complete that booking transaction. So now that's on sort of the renter side of things, the things that you can do as a host. Now, on the host side, it's all about that service and that experience that you provide. So you want to make sure you're utilizing Turo's new feature, that is their automated messaging, which has been phenomenal. I know a lot of you guys already use it through third-party apps like Coursing, but it's so amazing that it's in-house now. Make sure you utilize that to really streamline your communication and have consistently good communication, right? So you can have welcome messages, you can have ID verification messages. You can put messages out there for people to extend their trips so that you can capture more days on your booking calendar. And then you want to make sure that you also have thank you messages so that people can leave reviews describing your experience. And that alone is just elevated level of customer support, which you can fully automate. So it really doesn't take anything out of you as a host to do this. And you can just really provide such a great level of service just by implementing that automated messaging. And then finally, the experience of the vehicle itself, right? It shouldn't have to be, said, but it's amazing how many people don't uphold certain standards. But just make sure your car is clean, it's washed, full tank of gas, it's been maintained well, don't hand off cars that are dirty, and then make the pickup and drop off process extremely seamless. Provide very detailed pickup and drop off instructions like addresses, maybe landmarks that people can look out for when they come to pick up the car, exactly how they retrieve the key. It just makes it that much easier for the guests. And if you can do all of this, then you are really providing the maximum amount of value when it comes to renting cars, right? This is a lot of stuff that traditional car rental companies cannot do. So it makes us as Turo hosts extremely competitive in providing value in the market, which is going to, hopefully have you do well as a host on the platform. So those are some of the things that you can do to provide value. And once again, if you want to learn more about how to become a host on platform, how to do it well and do it the right way, check out powerhost.club. I have an entire course on it. But now let's sort of jump back into the economy as it relates to Turo and just talk about being a Turo host in this landscape, right? If you're a Turo host, effectively you are a small business owner. And I know for me, with having several businesses in the past, and now Turo being my primary business now, I'm constantly thinking about new ideas, what I could do with my money, how I can invest it. And, I try to always look at it from the lens of, okay, if I have, a solid 20, 30 years till sort of retirement time, what can I do with my money that will allow it to compound, that will allow it to grow? What can I invest it in? And maybe this is a series of many more videos to come that I'm happy to make. But, I love when markets are down, and a lot of that has to do with the psychology that you have when it comes to sort of recessionary times or hard times or when markets are down. Yes, there's a lot of fear in the markets, but these are just patterns that continue to repeat themselves over time. So I love when markets are down because it really motivates me to make as much money as I possibly can and then invest it. Because if I'm buying in at discounted prices, right? Like let's just say you're doing something super safe, like a Roth IRA that's invested in index funds, right? And you continue to put money in at discounted prices, which we're seeing right now, then your gains in the long term in 10, 20, 30 years from now are going to be exponential. So for me personally, my goals are, and people in my community were asking me this, what do I do when it's recessionary type times? So for me, my goal is make as much money as I possibly can. So get cash into the bank in every way possible, and then take that money and put it into things that can have exponential growth when times are better, that can compound over time. So I'll continue to make more videos about this because this is something I'm really, really into. And hopefully as Turo host, it will help you diversify and help you think about what you can do with a lot of the profits that you make on your cars and how to exercise those margins that you have. And then on a final note, sort of more on the cautionary side of things, because we are potentially, quote unquote, in a recession, one of the things that you don't want to do is get yourself into a position of a lot of financial liability. One of the things that I often see hosts do is when, let's say, your car gets damaged, right, and you have an open damage claim, they will put the repairs on a credit card and sort of pocket the money in the meantime and maybe use that cash flow towards something else. But be very cautious when you do things like that, because times like this, you want to make sure that, your credit card utilization is extremely low. You definitely want to be below that 30% mark, that you're not racking up credit card debt, and that you're paying off those balances every single month. And sometimes that can really kind of take you down a very bad path, for lack of better words, in which it can start snowballing, and all of a sudden you have all this credit card debt, maybe business slows down. So you just don't want to be in that type of position. So again, being proactive, given that, Turo businesses are headed into summer season, it's going to be very busy. So this is going to be good times for us, but use that as a time to be proactive and pay off all credit cards that you have. Don't take on additional debt, and just continue to really hustle and get your cars out there, make that money, give yourself a runway, have more than enough money in the bank to pay for expenses, to pay for taxes, and then, invest. If that means more cars, great, if your market calls for it. And if that means getting into other investment vehicles, maybe a new business, stocks, whatever it might be, then maybe that's where you place your money. So these are just some tips that I want to share with you guys, because that's what's been on my mind in these last couple months, and I'll continue to make more videos about that. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I would love to know what you think about the times that we're in and where things are headed, and what are some things that you might be doing to be proactive in dealing with an economic downturn. So I would love to know what you guys get into, and hopefully we can, make more content and have more conversations about this stuff and grow as a community. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. If you like this video, make sure you hit that like button, show your support, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care. Bye, guys.